Hi, we're the Brights coming to you live from our studio kitchen.
Again.
Yes, and tonight I didn't put a time on there because I think that's what causes a lot of stress is that we think we can do it by a certain time and then things don't go that way. So we're just supposed to, I think that's what lives are all about, right?
Yeah.
Is that we're just supposed to go live. So, and then I'm constantly doing this going, okay, you sit up, I sit up. Okay, so you stand up. You gotta go. I think you need to go higher.
How's that?
Give everybody a chance to get on. Yeah. Because you
That
really
better?
are taller than me, but I always look
All right.
taller than you because I usually have on high heels. But in here,
I think we're good
I'm
now.
like that. So
I think we're good.
So it's Sunday night. Hey, Vanessa, how are you? Good. She's saying hi. And Barbara. Hey, Barbara. We miss you. That's the other Barbara because you
Yeah.
always get them confused. So welcome. It's Sunday night, and we are... we had a great day today. We had a good day in Marriage Rocks class. We had our friends Brittany and David share a story with their story today at our class, and
Very moving, very touching.
yeah, it was. We were doing a new series on deeper intimacy, and it was really very heartfelt.
Yeah.
So we're really
So
proud.
thank
of
y'all
them.
for coming out.
Yes,
Those of
we're very
you who
proud of
came
them.
out to support David and Brittany, we
Yes.
greatly appreciate that.
Yep, and if you guys are in the Houston area, we actually teach a marriage class every Sunday at 10:15 at Lakewood Church, right off Southwest Freeway. It's called Marriage Rocks. It's on the 4th floor in the loft. And if you want to come,
It's a
visit,
great class.
yes,
I hate
it
when
really
we're teaching a class. It's like, okay, these are the things that you're doing right, the things that you're doing wrong. It's nothing like that. It's just people being real, being transparent,
Yes.
being honest about the issues that they're having with and struggling in marriage, or the stuff that they've overcome and the seasons that they're in.
And I think people think
you know,
people think that when we say come to a marriage class, they're like, "Well, I don't have marriage problems," or "I don't want to come tell my problems to someone." But it's not like that. It's not like I was going to say physical therapy. It's not a
It's group therapy.
It's not group therapy. But we have donuts and coffee, and it's just everybody's.
It's a
very
great
real.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
It really
Kind of
is.
like how we are real, but just in a really much bigger setting. So we hope you guys.
everybody who
join
comes
us.
always says, always.
Yes.
It's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
what do they always say? They always say, I thought we were the only ones.
Yeah, and
so
this
they
is
come
really
out
real.
and they hear that. So it's good. And we had a great week too because I got a new tattoo. You want to see? My husband is so happy about it. Yeah, you're okay with it now though. It took me 2 years to like convince him because you tell him why you don't want me to have a tattoo. Or why you thought that none of us should
Because
have
if
tattoos.
you ever do a crime, you can be identified from the tattoo. So now you can't do any crimes.
Wasn't planning on it.
All right.
And I have my eyeliner tattooed, and so that was how I had to kind
Man,
of
you're
start.
saying all your secrets. You're going to keep going, or you're going to stop now?
we're gonna stop there.
Okay.
We have other beauty secrets, but we're just gonna stop there. Just give people a chance to get on. So we have been talking to a few different couples this week, as always, talking to different couples about different marriage issues. And one of the things that we see that pops up a lot, and we dealt with it on a major, we still deal with it sometimes because we're human and we still just go back to our old ways, but we really had an issue with this, and that is defensiveness, being defensive in marriage. And it's so destructive. It causes so much destruction in marriage, but a lot of times most people are coming with that defensiveness because of past hurts, because of insecurities, because of things that have happened in their life, how they were raised. Almost everything we talk about it almost every week, that most of the things that we deal with go back to our childhood. So defensiveness, it brings up a lot of those things. It usually triggers a lot of those things.
Then I can tell you this: the couples that we counsel with and the couples that we talk to, this is one of the number one issues that they deal with, is one of them being defensive and not being able to speak, or both of them being defensive with each other. I remember this. To me, defensiveness was, okay, let me sit down and you're going to tell me everything that's wrong with me, and I can't say anything about what's wrong with you. Is that right? That's right. Okay, so that's kind of how I thought defensive, and that's why I would get defensive, because it wasn't like, okay, awesome, we're going to sit down and talk about all of my brokenness and everything. Great,
Well, kind of what we started talking about this week of what we were going to talk about, actually defensiveness wasn't the first thing that we kind of led to that. We were talking about walking on eggshells and about how couples have to walk on eggshells a lot of times in marriage because they're not free to talk about the things that are issues are things that are bothering them or things that hurt them, or if there's a problem with the other person, if there's, they can't complain about anything, and then it's just hard for them to do that. So they're walking in, and if you start really researching about walking on eggshells, it really leads you into a whole other subject about toxic relationships. And so we've done videos before on here about toxic relationships, but tonight we're talking about more about walking on eggshells, having to do that, and what a lot of times that has to do with defensiveness. And then so the Gottman Institute, if y'all have ever heard of them, but if you should look them up, they have a lot of great information. They have actually done a thing where they show the predictors of divorce, and that 93% they can predict accuracy of divorce with 93% accuracy.
Just by how people communicate with each other.
How they react, how they have conflict. Defensiveness is a big one. So if you have defensiveness, it's a huge indicator that divorce could be imminent if you don't work on those things. So it's a big predictor, I guess, of divorce. So if divorce is not allowing your spouse
defensiveness.
What did I say?
Divorce.
Oh, divorce.
Defensiveness
is not allowing your spouse the right to complain. And so we learned some stuff too going in the marriage classes the last few years, because I loved it when I heard Jimmy Evans, because a lot of the stuff we get from Jimmy Evans too. Jimmy Evans does great. He does the Marriage on the Rock, and a lot of our training comes from that. And whenever I heard him say that we should be able to complain about anything,
our ears are like, I'm in.
Like, finally, somebody that gets me, because, I would try to complain to Richard about things, but actually I didn't know the difference between complaining or criticizing. So I would really, instead of complaining to him, I was criticizing him. And so I would go to him and criticize, but Jimmy Evans says that we should have the right to complain to our spouse, but not to criticize. And that's the difference of knowing what that difference is.
And I think that's where the growth came from, but it just doesn't happen naturally, because when somebody is coming at you, our natural defense mechanism is to protect ourselves, and if you're going to be talking about me, well, man, I'm going to have to be talking about you too, because now it's not just my fault, it's your fault too. Yeah. And let's just put it back on you, instead of saying, you know what, I can receive that. Thank you. I've noticed that I'm kind of out of hand when I do that. And, I just had a pastor the other day. I was talking to him, and then another pastor came up, and I started talking to the other pastor. So I sent him a text later on in the week going, I am so sorry that you and I were talking.
Back it up. That's not how it went down. I said to you, you need to send him a text because you were not listening to what he was saying.
After I had told you. See, we're about to get defensive here.
No, I'm telling you. Because
after I told you what had happened between us. You didn't even know what transpired between us until
Richard told me. He texted him and said, hey, you need to work on this. Like, I
told you that, man, I blew Steve off as we were talking to him. And I started talking to John.
I blew you blew him off. Okay, whoa. Y'all give us a minute. So we're sitting in church, and they're texting back and forth, and he says to him, hey, Richard, I want to give you a couple tips about about things that will help you, and can you receive that? And you're like, sure, of course. And so he said, after I
texted him and apologized for blowing him off. I'll let you read the text. Okay.
So anyway, only because I said you need to talk to Steve, because that's not very nice of how you did that to him. And so I just said it was Steve. Hi, Steve. And so I just said, Richard, and so we've been talking about that. That's like a thing that we've been working on for a long time. And I tell Richard a lot, you need to be focused in on the people that you're talking to. But he said he has such a relational spirit, and that when people are coming up to talk to him and other people are waiting, he just feels bad for the other people. I have really learned, and I learned it from Steve, to zone in on people when they're talking. Like, I don't care if you're waving. I mean, if you're waving at me, sometimes I have to kind of do it because now you've just been rude. But if you're sitting there and you're like trying to get somebody's attention, and I'm talking to someone else, I will pretty much ignore you the best that I can, because I'm trying to put my attention into this person I'm speaking with. So it's a thing I tell Richard a lot. Like, I think you need to work on that. Like, I am complaining about that, and I try not to criticize him about it. But when Steve pointed it out, it was a whole different story, because he could receive it from Steve. And so I was so happy.
I can't, because I feel like I'm growing as an individual. There was a time that if somebody came at me, I have to go back at them, because that's just what we do.
Immediately go back.
But I want to grow. I don't want to be the same person I was last year or last 6 months or the last week. I want to be better today than I was yesterday.
But I can tell you that I got a little bit defensive I didn't say it to Steve, but I kind of, when he said he said y'all, and he didn't point Richard out, and I thought, wait a minute, this is something I've been working on, and I've been really doing really great at it, and I'm always on him about it. So I was so happy that he pointed it out, but I was like, don't put y'all in there.
All self-righteous. And
I was like, don't put y'all in there. So we had this big conversation about it. So anyway, ladies, if you're praying for something for your man and he does not get it when you're saying it, but somebody else tells it to him,
which is probably going to be
the
way it happens
90% of the time, just take it. Don't say, oh, I've been trying to tell you that, because I used to tell Richard, oh, really? Well, I've been trying to tell you that for... Be thankful, but just say take it as a blessing from God that He answered your prayer.
Because then you just lose it. Whenever
you liked it to.
When I come in and I'm like, guess what I just heard? Such and such, and I'm all excited about it, and you go, well, I've been trying to tell you that. Yes. Well, then it's gone.
Yeah,
then it's
gone.
like back to zero again. Never mind.
Or you get so excited you don't even hear what I'm saying. But usually it's Steve that does it. Like, he'll tell us something about some kind of food or something, and I've been telling Richard, like, you need to eat right, or you need to take the supplement. And then when Steve says it, it's the gospel.
That's right.
So he listens to him.
That's bro code, man. Listen to my bros.
Just be taking it. I've had a big switch in the way I think of things, and that is, thank you, God. I'm just thanking Him for the blessing that He answered my prayer. Didn't get answered the way that I thought.
Amen.
Amen. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That was side break. That was having a minute.
Yeah.
So when you're defensive, when someone is trying to tell you something about yourself that you don't want to hear, or you can't receive, or you just decide, choose not to, defensiveness means I will not allow my spouse the ability to process.
And that is it's a marriage killer. Okay. I mean, because flow. That we are working together as a team, and we're allowing the Holy Spirit to heal us, and we're doing this together. It's not an individual game. Even though we're individuals in this, it's not that we're being, I'm doing my way, you do it your way, and we just work this marriage out. That's not the way it works. It's, what I got to, like Pastor Jimmy says, I've got to come into Sherry's world sometimes, and she has to come into mine. And we have to make sure that our love languages are being met, that we understand each other's personalities, and we're able to talk so that we don't get defensive when somebody says, hey, there's something that's happening and it's not benefiting our marriage, and we need to be able to talk about this. Because if we don't, I was telling a person today that, man, there are no marriage problems. There are people with problems who get married, and that's where it comes from. And the natural tendency of marriage is to grow apart.
Yeah.
And defensiveness helps us grow apart.
Yeah, pushes us apart. And I can remember a time when we did not, and like I said, we still have our days, and there's times that I just go, and he's like, I don't need to hear from you.
Talk to the hand, sister.
Because the elbow ain't listening. I would never allow him to complain or tell me I would just be so defensive anytime he brought up anything negative in me, because I had so many triggers from things, my insecurities. A lot of it was my insecurities, just being emotionally insecure.
Which I didn't know. I thought I was helping.
And emotional finds emotional. We always talk about this. Emotional healthy finds emotional healthy, and emotionally broken finds broken. So here we're both emotionally broken. We don't realize we're emotionally unhealthy, but we're trying to fix the other person, and the other person can't receive it because they're so hurt and tender. Everything is just a ping, I remember with Richard, when I first met Richard, I could never have done a Facebook Live video. I wouldn't even walk to the restroom by myself in a this is about self-esteem. Yeah. I couldn't even walk to a bathroom in a restaurant by myself because my self-esteem was so low. So for him to be able to try to come to me about something, everything triggered me because I was very insecure. And then if I tried to go to him and say something about that I needed to complain about, which usually came across as criticizing, he would say, oh, I can't do anything right.
And the issue is, some people are internalizers and some people are externalizers. I was really good at externalizing, and so is Sherry. We're both type A personalities. We're both driven. We're both very boisterous. So I intimidated her. I would intimidate and get angry and let my voice just come out. So what I was trying to do is show her, look, if you bring up my alcohol drinking or the issue with pornography or any of these things, you see how I just got angry and blew my gasket and punched holes in.
This is what you're going
to get. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to intimidate her to not bring those up again and not be able to talk about this. And it's destroying our marriage but I think everything is okay because I didn't know that I didn't know.
Well, and he would control it, and so I would get like scared, and so I would retreat and like, I can't talk about that. So here we go, walking on eggshells. And then if he wasn't acting, blowing up, then he was doing that. What I was about to say a while ago was remember how you used to tell me, well, I guess I can't
do anything right. I just can't do anything right.
I'm just
Jesus doesn't even love me. I'm just a loser. And she would come up, no, baby,
you're not a loser. And I somehow would turn it around where I'm sitting here
and
consoling him.
she'd be apologizing, and I'm like,
and I know he's probably in the back going,
it's
got it. Yes, tricked her again. But we didn't know this is the game that we played, and so
these are just defense mechanisms that help us cope in life because we've never really learned how to cope the right way and deal with this the right way.
And if we didn't answer defensively, then we answered with excuses. Like as soon as he would say something, I would give him a whole laundry list of why that was the way it was. And usually it had something to do with if he had done A, B, C, D, I wouldn't be doing E, F, G. But instead of dealing with what he was trying to tell me, or me trying to deal with what we would just give each other an excuse of and we still do that sometimes. Like want to give an excuse, especially if it's something we're actually working on, or what they pointed out is not really happening. So
it was so hard for me to just say to Steve, "Thank you, Steve. I received that." Because I wanted to say, "Steve, the reason it," and then I'm like, "Nope."
Because your wife said, "Just text back, thank you."
Right.
Because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do even when our spouse says it. We still need to talk about it, but sometimes we need to just say thank you.
Not I'm sorry,
not
because
sarcastically.
We're not sorry yet. We might not be sorry yet. So, but thank you is it's just a good analysis process. We don't have to argue and fight about everything. Sometimes we need to be able to process, and men process differently than women do. We're thinking long term. We don't want to fight. We don't want to argue. We don't want to disappoint. We don't want to let you down. And it seems like if we're not doing it right, that's all we're doing is we're just disappointing you daily, letting you down daily, and it is just this twisted game that we play.
And if we don't allow our spouse an opportunity to complain, if we don't allow them to complain about problems, then they don't go away. Those problems don't go away just because you're not talking about
it. They magnify.
They just accumulate, and they just get bigger, and they start to like grow. They just start to magnify. What's the other thing? They kind of like compound. Like they just build on each other, and then all of a sudden you're getting upset about things that's really not even what you're mad about, but you didn't deal with the other things that are under there. Were you hit my
because your leg keeps shaking the table. Yeah.
Oh, my leg's not touching the table.
Well, I was moving.
I think it's you. I was going to say, now you got me off track. So I have a couple notes, y'all. So when we get defensive, we're saying that I don't validate your concerns, that what you're saying does not mean anything to me, that you're not worth being heard. Even if sometimes that we don't agree with someone about what they're saying, we still need to validate the fact that they want to be able to, they should be able to voice that. We should be able to say, I understand that you're upset about that. What I'm doing, I know what I'm doing bothers you. Sometimes I just want to be heard. Like, I don't always have to be right, but sometimes I just need to feel like I've been heard. What did they say?
I don't know. My contacts messed up.
They were saying about shaking the table. Oh. The other thing is to be able to say whenever, so the difference between complaining and criticizing, which I wanted to get back to that. We didn't understand the difference between complain and criticize. And so I took that when I heard Jimmy Evans say we should have the right to complain about anything in marriage. I was just like, here's my list, here's my chance. But what I didn't understand was when we're complaining, it's saying, not necessarily putting something on them that they did wrong, but you're just saying, this is how I feel. It's right or wrong, I still feel this way. And not criticizing or being critical of their character, or I could say, hey, you're so messy, just like your mother, and you're just. But if I just said, hey, the way it makes me feel is like.
What'd you say about my mama?
I like our house to be nice, and it makes me just feel like I'm disrespected. If we can do it that way, then it's different between complaining and criticizing. So you can't read that. There's a lot of people writing a lot of stuff.
Something about a couch.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know who's on there. So we need to validate, even if we don't agree. Defensiveness says, I won't even validate or entertain the thought of what you're saying, that I could be the problem. So when someone says, because when I was married the second time, my ex-husband would always say, Sherry, my marriage is fine. If you've got a problem, you know what you need to do? You need to go get your own counseling, or maybe you need to get divorced, because my marriage is fine. So there was never any ownership or responsibility of taking responsibility of anything could have been wrong with him. So then that leaves me with what? Like, I don't even know how do you even work that out, like you got to go get counseling. But we had an issue. But what that shows is if you're defensive and you don't allow the other person to be able to complain, that shows that you're emotionally insecure, and that you're immature and emotionally insecure. And
these are things that we have to work on. I mean, marriage is not, I asked a class the other day, we were teaching a pre-marriage class, and I said, by a show of hands, how many think the natural progression of marriage is to become happier? And 90% of the class, there's probably 30 kids or 30 adults in there, and 90% of them raised their hand that they thought the natural progression of marriage was to grow together. And the natural progression of marriage is to grow apart. So we intentionally have to do something every day to improve our marriage, to pour into our marriage. And if we're not doing that, then we're growing apart.
Okay, I don't know what people are talking about, but somehow, like, all these people are on here that aren't even our people, but they're talking about selling a couch. So I don't even know what that's about. Somehow I missed it, but all of a sudden 116 people are on here live talking about somebody's couch, a marriage couch. I just really wanted the couch, man. I don't know.
Hey, man, somebody sell that person that couch.
Right, go in Marketplace. So defensiveness says that you're the problem. The reason I won't let you complain is actually because you're the problem. So let's say I'm going to Richard to complain about something.
I heard that today.
I'm going to him to complain about something, but he doesn't let me talk because he thinks, well, you're actually the problem. It's not my problem.
Right.
And
there were so many times I thought that. I thought, man, you're the one with the problem. I never even saw it that I had the issue that was causing the problem. I just thought she just couldn't see it right.
I have to stop this, y'all, because I don't know. They're talking about a couch. So it says, "Where's the marriage couch?" So you're talking about the couch that we used to have, that we have in our studio that we're putting together. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. So we showed a picture about our new studio that has a couch, and we're waiting for the signage to be in our studio. So I don't know what y'all talking about. That's the only couch I know about. So if not, everybody's laughing about it, and now there's 200 people. But hey, if we got 200 people to watch the show about marriage and defensiveness,
we can't be defensive in our marriage. So man, pass this around, watch the video.
So defensive means that if you can't take that, it means I am emotionally insecure. This is really making me like lose my train of thought with all these people. It also means that you are weak, emotionally weak. That's what the word I was trying to think of. Yeah. So emotionally healthy people can listen. They can listen. They can hear.
When I heard Steve, I must be emotionally healthy.
She must be growing. Yep. You may not agree with it, but it says, I can listen to what you're saying, and I'm going to process it.
What does the Bible say? Better to be rebuked by a friend than be kissed by an enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We want to, and when you get to a place where you're healthy, I want to grow. I know for us, we talk about it all the time. We want to grow. Doesn't always feel good when someone says something about, when someone gives you constructive criticism, because I don't even know, that sounds like an oxymoron to me, constructive criticism, because criticism still hurts, and even if it's constructive, it still kind of hurts. But you know what, usually when I think it hurts the most is when it's something that you're already trying to work on, and you already know it's something, and someone else points it out to you.
That does hurt.
Yeah. So healthy marriages, functional marriages, they process things. They're allowed to say what they need to say. They're allowed to they're allowed to say what they want to say. They don't walk on eggshells. They don't, they don't give the other person, and they don't cut them off like Richard was saying earlier, where they intimidate, where you can't speak. They actually allow the other person to speak. And so I can't read all these things that are going because it's throwing me off, and there's lots of laughy faces. I know I'm going to go back this and probably figure this out. So dysfunctional marriages don't allow you to talk. They keep secrets. You walk on eggshells.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Destroys intimacy.
And what does defensiveness do? So why we don't want to do that? It ruins the feelings of goodwill that you have towards your spouse. And one of the things we learned in marriage classes was having goodwill. Learning that most of the time, if you're in a healthy relationship, is that my spouse has goodwill toward me. Yeah. Like he wants the best for me. He's my biggest cheerleader. I'm his biggest cheerleader. And if we can be each other's cheerleader, if we can be responsible for the other person's self-esteem, and like we're constantly building them up, then we have the right to be able to complain to them. We should be able to go to them and say things. And there's also the 10-to-1 rule, that we say 10 good things, 10 positive things that person is doing right. It's so much easier to take one thing that's sandwiched in there that you need to work
improve on. Absolutely.
Because you've now earned the right to be able to criticize, because you've also done so much stuff in love.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good, baby.
Yeah. So it inhibits honesty, and the defensive inhibits honesty and the ability to share openly. It locks your problems in, and it just kind of puts them in a gridlock in your relationship. That promotes dysfunction and ill will toward your spouse. I can't even do this anymore because I'm watching all these things. So we simply must allow our spouse to be able to complain. And so we know now what the difference is between complaining and criticizing. They should be able to tell us stuff without paying a price. So I should be able to go to him without retaliation. He should be able to come and talk to me without me going, oh really? Well, I'll show you, and now you're going to pay for that.
Guys, we're not supposed to attack each other, okay? That is just an evil spirit on our marriage. You know, Satan wants to get in between us and drive us apart, all right? And we have to recognize that. Our spouse has our best intentions. Our spouse has the love for us that we need. And it's not, when we're arguing, it's not against our spouse, it's against principalities, it's against spirits that are attacking each other. And man, we've got to get strong, and we have to let the Holy Spirit come in and heal our past and heal our brokenness so that we're able to step forward and not be defensive when we're dealing with everyday problems.
Yeah. And so if we can get to a point where if our spouse does come to us or something happens where we need to say something to them, instead of attacking them and saying, I don't know what you meant by that, but this is how I feel. And I think if we can learn just little things, little tools that we can do differently, you'll see how it will change your marriage. So complaining about how you feel, I said that, and being the number one fan, the 10 to 1 rule, learn to validate your spouse, his or her, when they come to you, that you want to be heard, that you're actually listening to what they're saying. Take responsibility, for the things they're saying, because a lot of times Steve Austin, the same guy that we're talking about earlier in the video, that there's always a little truth to everything. So when someone might say something about you and you're like, well, most of that stuff's not true, there's always just a little bit of truth in it. So we try to be really self-aware and take that and go, what is that truth that we need to work on? So we want to take care of our spouse, we want to show care and be sensitive to them.
That's right.
Right? So I don't know what's all about a couch. I'm going to go back and see all this, but it got 210 people to watch it live, so I have no idea. So we love you guys. We ask you to share the videos. I'm hoping we don't have to do this video again because some weird thing is happening, but please share the videos. We also have a new YouTube page called The Real Brights, and if you just share from this, you can share it on Facebook for anyone that you know that might be going through marriage things or relationship problems, things where they need help.
That's right.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in. We love you. We're praying for you.
Yep.
And we'll see you next Sunday.
Peace out.
Deuce.